Hello and welcome back to Moving Right Along, a Muppet movie podcast brought to you by toughpigs.com. It's the podcast where we watch The Muppet Christmas Carol 2 minutes at a time and talk about it a lot. I'm your host, Anthony Strand.
And I'm your other host, Ryan Rowe.
And today we are joined by one of our most frequent guests, one of our most beloved guests. Who is it?
It's Danny Horn. Hello. From who you might know from Tough Pigs and Muppet Wiki and now Superheroes Every Day.
I do know you from all three of those things.
Yeah, I hope everyone else does too.
All right, well, what a
And
thrill.
I'm thrilled to be here today.
Wonderful. Danny is here to join us for minutes 23 and 24 of The Muppet Christmas Carol. In these minutes, Scrooge settles in for a quiet evening at home.
Yes.
So the first thing here...
Well, so just, like you may recall at the beginning of the Great Muppet Caper season of the podcast, I had a lot to say on the subject of post-structuralist literary theory, which I discussed at length, and you thought I was entirely out of my mind. Do you remember that?
It felt like
my memory is that we were both delighted.
Yes,
and
yes.
We're so happy to talk about
what I'm saying is now the tables have turned. All of a sudden, metatextual analysis is actually happening with puppets live on the screen. So I'm very excited about discussing this with you.
Some of it is actually intentional in this movie, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm super excited about discussing like the conflicting cultural codes that come up when you're doing a 1992 film adaptation of an 1843 text and you're doing it in the wrong country with puppets.
All right.
I mean, they shot this in England.
They did film it in England, but I think it was made like primarily by Americans and for an American audience, like to the extent that it was made for anyone at all, rather than being a Brian Henson vanity project that he kind of dragged us all into.
I'm so glad you're here.
It's gonna be fun. I'm having a good time already. It's great.
Me too, man. So the first thing we hear is Gonzo has just sat up, and he says, "To say that Scrooge was not startled would be untrue. Still, the moment had passed, and the world was as it should be." And so, as usual, Gonzo's dialogue here is a mix of two geniuses, Charles Dickens and Jerry Jewell. And so in the book, the exact quote is, "To say that he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible sensation to which it had been a stranger from infancy would be untrue." That's all in the book. Yeah. But the moment had passed and the world was as it should be. That's Jerry Jewell. He wrote that himself. So he condensed Dickens and then added, again, another sentence that sounds like Dickens wrote it, but he didn't because Jerry Jewell's a genius.
Yeah, and I got to say, I think Jerry Jewell's is better in this example. Yeah,
I mean, I kind of like that thing about how Scrooge has never been that startled or whatever. It's wordy because Dickens is always wordy, but I think it's a nice line.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's scattering like memorable phrases from Charles Dickens into the. So I didn't realize that you were keeping track of this stuff because I went and measured as well, and I looked at like all of the text from the clip and then like how much of it came from the book, and the way I calculated it was like 27. This is generous, like 27 out of the 78 words actually from Dickens. So it's like
are in the book, yeah,
are like right. 34.5% was what I got.
You're saying is this all the spoken lines in this clip, or specifically words?
All of the ones that are like Gonzo being the narrator,
as Charles Dickens,
and saying Dickens stuff. It's like about 30% Dickens stuff.
Okay.
And so I actually think it's really interesting that in the interviews, Henson and Jewell kind of talked about like, oh well, like even though the Muppets are in this movie, like this is actually the most faithful adaptation of Christmas Carol because it has all of Dickens's like, it's all of his words and his narration is in it, which is like 70% not true.
Right. Well, but I think the reason why that is a good line and sounds plausible is because all of it is in the spirit of the book.
Oh yeah, it is Dickensy for sure.
Yeah.
But there is a central quandary. I've been wondering like, am I going to uncork this? And I am. So here's my central quandary.
Here it comes.
This is the post-structuralist perspective is like, can a 20th century movie actually be faithful to a text that was written 149 years earlier? And And so can I just talk about America for a minute?
Your question is just, can it be faithful to the source material at
like,
all?
Is there such a thing? Does that have any actual meaning?
Okay.
So example I just want to talk about for a second is Scrooge. I'm going back to other clips. But when Scrooge has the little heat wave moment with the rats, where he says, like, how would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly unemployed? And Anthony, like, I know you haven't released these episodes, so I haven't heard you do this, but I know I'm sure you talked about like that they say like losing your situation rather than unemployed. Because Americans don't have the phrase losing your situation. And so like they had to make this movie for Americans in the 90s. And the social conditions have changed. So this is the whole post-structuralist thing, is like looking at like what's the cultural change between now and back when they made the movie, because the whole purpose of Dickens's work is to talk about how to treat the poor, which we do completely differently now. Like at the time, the big deal was, are the poor people, like, can they receive charity outside the workhouses, or do they need to go to the workhouses in order to receive charity? And so this story is all about like private charity. It doesn't say there should be like an institutional responsibility to take care of poor people. Like the core premise is that like this is a thing that happens privately, and this whole movie is about shaming an individual rich person because he doesn't throw pennies to children once a year, rather than setting up the welfare state, which they did in like the 1900s, 1910s, where there's kind of like this understanding that there's a government responsibility to relieve poverty. And so in America, that was true as well. So this whole question of like, what should Scrooge be doing is received by us, I would think, completely differently. Like we're watching this and we're like, okay, but Little Bean Bunny shouldn't be out on the street begging for turkey legs.
Well, and shivering in the newspaper.
Yeah. And so if that is it, and I feel that you would agree that like that question is kind of the point of the movie, or the point of the book is like, shouldn't we be treating poor people differently? Which we now do. So what is the point of this movie at this point?
Is the book asking though, like the book is focused specifically on Christmas time. So I don't know.
Well, Christmas time was actually like the time that a lot of the charity happened,
right, in
England. Was they would actually like bring people into auditorium spaces, like rich people. This is a thing that I learned from the Battle for Christmas book, which I think we talked about before, where like it was sort of like a circus. Like they would bring rich people would like sit in an auditorium, and they would bring poor people in and be kind to them, and that was like a Christmas show,
like a talent show,
right?
Or something.
Well, but I think what you're talking about, is pretty recently in the United States, there was a very successful network television show called Undercover Boss. The premise of which was, what if rich corporation owners decided to feign kindness and charity to their employees for a little while? Wouldn't that be heartwarming?
It's funny. I actually had an undercover boss joke in my notes a couple weeks ago when we had a scene with the rats, but I didn't get around to it. Right.
It's like Scrooge undercover as one of the rats.
Right. Exactly.
Just like wearing her rat. No, but I mean, you say this book is about shaming an individual rich person to be more kindly. That's what that whole TV show was about. That is not a premise that has gone away in the past 170.
No, because rich people are still heartless.
Right, and terrible.
That's a generalization, but it's
no, that's true.
That's true generalization.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I mean, go sit on Instagram for 5 seconds, and 1/3 of what you'll see in people's stories is Jeff Bezos should be taxed. Elon Musk should be more generous. Like, we sit around shaming individual rich people all the time. It just doesn't work. That's why this
it's very true.
That's why this fantasy still has power. Because what if Jeff Bezos
this book is so old that people still haven't gotten
What if Elon Musk became generous?
Yeah.
You know?
Because this is basically it's a story about just human greed, which unfortunately we have not worked out of the system yet.
Right. So I think that's the point. It's something we all sit around thinking about all the time. Lex Luthor is one of you know Superman. Lex Luthor is one of our like most famous supervillains, and he's Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
Does Lex
Like,
Luthor not feign generosity by giving to charities? I feel like I've read Superman stories.
I suppose he probably does, depending on who's writing him.
Right. Well, yeah.
Anyways,
it's also interesting now that I've never thought about this, but the happy ending of this movie is Scrooge gives away his personal money to people on the street. And we hear that he became great at celebrating Christmas, but we don't hear that Scrooge...
That he paid his workers better.
Give money to everybody year-round.
We literally do hear that he paid his one worker better. That's a very important point of the book's ending.
Because then Tiny Tim... should we say that yet, or is that a spoiler that Tiny Tim lives?
Yeah, it's a spoiler that Tiny Tim did not die.
What?
How dare you? But yeah, so anyways, what else? What else do you got in the old
what else do I have? No, you guys can keep going.
Oh, okay. No, I'm loving this. I don't know if you can tell. I'm truly loving this.
Yes,
I know. I got more.
This is why we're excited to have you on the show.
I am always so happy to be here.
But talked about that for so long that my jelly beans, not quite, because but on the topic of literary intrusions. Rizzo, after Gonzo's lines that we just said, then Rizzo looks out at us and says, he ain't Hoyt, didn't even break his concentration. But what's great about this to me is that Gonzo says, huh? And Rizzo says nothing. But Gonzo's huh is like so casual and tossed off, which is one of the many examples of how just like loose and funny Dave Goelz is as Gonzo in this movie.
Yeah. The nonchalant way that he proceeds with this after Rizzo thinks that he's just been in a possibly fatal accident is very funny.
Right. Well, and I think if he was just being, I think in a worse version of this movie, if Gonzo was being Charles Dickens and then also had like scripted Gonzo antics, I don't think it would work as well as it does when it feels like Gonzo the character is going off script, right? Like it doesn't like, I feel like we're going to have a lot of time to talk about Gonzo and Rizzo not working in Muppet Treasure Island. But in that movie, Gonzo is Chili Pepper Gonzo, right? He's like, oh, I'm going to be in the NBA.
That's true. He's thrill seeker Gonzo. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this one, he's just like a bored character actor who like is messing around because he doesn't like the narration. We
get glimpses like when they hitch a ride with the Ghost of Christmas Past and they're flying over the city. Like Gonzo is loving that.
Yes,
and that's Gonzo. That's not Charles Dickens. But it is only a few glimpses like that. Yeah,
but something that's lovely here is like this really fluid way that he kind of transforms back and forth between like I am now looking at the audience and doing the narration, and then he can kind of like look off and look at Rizzo, and then he can say like, "Come on, Rizzo, hurry up."
Yeah, right.
It's just really beautiful. Yeah, you're right. Like how he kind of like transitions like super smoothly between those things. Yeah,
it's truly such an impressive performance. But the next thing we see is 2-time Academy Award winner Michael Caine lighting a candle at his house, and that's the whole scene. And this feels like 20 years ago or so, Danny, you and our friend Kynan Barker wrote one of the definitive Tough Pigs articles, in my opinion. My Week with the Muppet Christmas Carol. And in that, you talk about Michael Caine action poses.
Yes.
All the time. And like the color.
I'd actually forgotten. I had forgotten that I even wrote those articles until you just mentioned them, like before we started recording.
I have read that article every single year since that time.
At it now. That is so
you got to read it. It's great. It's a masterpiece.
I bet it's really good.
They're extremely.
But in that you talk about all the Michael Caine action poses for the coloring book.
Oh yes, lighting a candle.
And this is one of them, right? Lighting a candle. So
because these are the action sequences for this book. Is like he goes. Actually, this clip is gonna end with one of the great action sequences of the Muppet Christmas Carol when he beats up his own clothes.
Right, and actually, as long as we're talking about that article, can I reminisce a little bit about Tough Pigs history?
About stuff that I wrote.
About stuff that you wrote, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great. Like 20 years ago, that's fantastic.
I joined the Tough Pigs forum as a teen, as an impressionable teen. And I like I admired you so much, and I still do. Obviously, I still admire you, and look up to you a great deal and all that. Thank you. But at that time, I remember reading your profile on the Delphi forums said political views. I don't like Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. That's as political as Muppet fans get, which isn't true, and obviously wasn't true in your work even then.
Yes,
but it was a good.
But hating Dark Crystal and Labyrinth was true.
Right, of course. And I remember reading you talk bad about Labyrinth, a movie I loved. Yeah. And I remember again, such an impressionable teen that I would be like, oh, if Danny doesn't like Labyrinth, maybe it's bad actually. Maybe Danny's right about everything.
I think a lot of that has to do with how confidently and entertainingly you express your opinions.
Yeah, that's right.
You read the stuff and you're like, oh wow, yeah, he's got to be right.
Maybe Dark Crystal. Maybe Dark Crystal really isn't as good as Thelma and Louise, which is I think what I did.
Yes,
right,
that's
yeah,
classic
that's a great
article.
Which it is not.
I'm sure it's not. I've never seen Thelma and Louise still, and I probably should.
For those who haven't read these articles,
you haven't seen Thelma and Louise?
We will.
I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry.
I haven't seen it either.
Why would I go out of my way to watch a Ridley Scott movie if I didn't have to?
It's really, oh my goodness. You watched silent movies from 1904.
Yeah. Why? Wait.
Didn't it get an Oscar?
Are you telling me that a movie from the director of Legend is so essential that I should stop watching silent movies?
Does this mean you haven't seen Blade Runner either?
I've seen Blade Runner. I don't love it.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to say.
I don't love Gladiator.
Actually, so this.
No, I don't like Gladiator.
When was Thelma and Louise? Was 1994?
92.
Was it? Same year. I'll say this: that Thelma and Louise for the year that it came out was very important and interesting, and everyone talked about it as kind of how we see women in movies and whether women can be the stars of big movies. I don't know what Thelma and Louise. I don't know how that feels now. If coming to it for the first time now in 2022, if it would feel important, it would not feel, I'm sure, today the way that it did, the way that it hit back then, which is the whole post-structuralist literary theory thing.
Right, but I'm sure that the 1926 Harold Lloyd movie, for heaven's sake, also doesn't feel the same. And I love that.
Exactly.
So
no, but
I'm not worried about
that. Is no, but that is the post-structuralist literary thing of seeing are we receiving this work in the same way that we were before?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm really not sure. Dark Crystal is terrible though.
It's bad. It's very bad.
That's what I'm saying. Okay,
as I've gone on record on this podcast.
We did a bonus episode about the Dark Crystal. We agreed that it's not great.
I love the TV show. I will say, and I should say that I love Alien. As long as before we leave Ridley Scott, I do love Alien.
That's the one I should have named. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways.
Well, no, I just want to say for those who might not be familiar with the article, I will link to it in the show notes. But Danny compared Thelma and Louise to the Dark Crystal to prove that the Dark Crystal is a bad movie and that Thelma and Louise is much better than it.
It's a better movie.
And maybe I should try to watch Thelma and Louise before this episode comes out, so I can I can include my thoughts.
Yeah, we'll do a bonus episode.
I'll do a bonus episode. No, but getting back to what I was going to say, that article where you and Kynan watch Muppet Christmas Carol.
Right.
As I've discussed, I adore this movie. I love everything about it. And I read that one, and that was my realization that sometimes Danny's just wrong. Sometimes.
Yeah.
That
was your trigger. You know what? That was probably an important moment in your growing up.
Well, I think it was, and
becoming your own independent thinker, and I'm proud of you.
Right. Well, and I think it's what allowed us to become friends and not need to just be like a Danny fan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So anyway,
because you used to idolize me. I was not aware of that, but I wish I had been at the time. I would have felt better about myself.
You told me that I should watch Doctor Who, and I've seen
and you did
episode of Doctor Who.
I was super right about that. Yeah,
you were. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm proud of that.
Best. But anyways, what else happens on this movie?
Right. I think people are now wondering, what did I just? All of a sudden, this turned into a very personal episode between me and Anthony, and how much we like each other.
Gonzo wants to. Gonzo wants to go inside, and then Rizzo wants to dig in the dirt for jelly beans. So what about jelly beans?
Oh, jelly beans. Oh, so it's so Rizzo, like the thing that's interesting about Rizzo here is I think that he is standing in for the audience and for he's asking all the questions and saying all the things that the audience is saying. Like, no, you're not Charles Dickens, you are Gonzo. I know that. How do you know what's happening when you're not in the room? Like, he's kind of investigating on our behalf. And I think that I love about the jelly beans is that, like, as a stand-in for the audience, like everyone in the audience is sitting there with like soda and popcorn and candy. Like that's a thing that we do before we see a movie is you got to like go and like get your gear. You got to like load up at the concessions counter. And so Rizzo like basically might as well be in the theater, like just kind of looking down and like asking people in the front row, like, hey, do you have any popcorn? Like he spends the entire movie looking for food.
Yes, he has already been eating bread earlier in this movie and apples.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that is him looking for jelly beans here. I feel like is him again being the audience substitute.
Right. And speaking of Rizzo and food, last episode of this podcast, I talked about how Brad Pitt does the same thing in Ocean's 11 and
constantly eating.
Yeah, and Brad Pitt, one of the stars of Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
So there you go. So then, but then we see this is another example of that Dave Goelz looseness after when Rizzo wants the jelly beans and Gonzo's like, come on, he talks him into it. Then he tosses off this sheesh. like I got to deal with this guy. Really
well, and there's this interesting kind of question about like how in control Gonzo is in the movie, that he is like, he's supposed to be, not only does he say that he's the author and do a whole bunch of the narration, but he actually in a minute is going to say that he's omniscient.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
But what we're about to see is that, at least as far as the props are concerned, like that not being true, because he's trying to get into the house. Scrooge slams the door in his face.
And they can't get in, yeah.
Yeah, and there's something that we'll get to much later in the season, but something that Brian Henson has said about when Scrooge wakes up on Christmas morning at the very end of the movie, that's the point where like the story that Gonzo is telling catches up to the reality of Gonzo and Rizzo. And he actually specifically made a deliberate decision to indicate that, because when Bean Bunny runs across like to talk to Scrooge in the window, he kind of bumps into them. And it's the first time really that a character in the story has affected. Yeah. And then he said, like, you can actually see Gonzo and Rizzo's footprints, I think, or something like that. So,
yeah, but that's not, but it's also not true at all. Because when they get to Scrooge's school, a cat chases Rizzo.
That's true.
And Gonzo talks to Sam the Eagle.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. I guess there's still questions
about
that's
something.
What's actually happening now? What's the story? Is this the present? Is this... Yeah, I don't know.
But what's true is that's something Brian Henson decided later and thought it sounded good.
He may have decided on the day and then thought that it would be a cool thing to do, not really thinking about the fact that it was already negated by other things in the movie.
Right.
But I think there's sort of this interesting thing about how, if Gonzo is supposed to be in control, but he can still be surprised. It gives the movie. I think that's the most Muppety thing about this movie. Is this sense of like it's not actually under control, like the characters are not in control of what's going on, even the one who is specifically saying that he's omniscient.
Right. Yeah.
And like, so it's like this really stylized film with this very specific look, and they filmed it all in studio so they could be like completely in control of all of the visuals and the dimensions of things and how everything fits together.
Yes.
So it's like much more than the previous three movies. Like this film should be much more controlled and kind of like under Gonzo's control. And so when he can't get in, that feels like the Muppet Show thing of like that things are still going to fall apart even within this like bubble of 1843 London.
Right. He's our guide to this show that they're putting on, but he still can't have.
He's not completely in control of
the direction
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's locked outside.
Right. But I think part of that too is that when at the beginning, Charles Dickens or Gonzo says he knows this story like the back of his hand.
Right.
And as we talked at the start of this episode, some of this stuff is not in the book. And certainly in the book, there's no Gonzo and Rizzo to lock out, right?
Right.
So it makes sense from that perspective that even if Gonzo does know the text, which he's playing it pretty loose around the beat, right? Like,
yeah,
like you say,
he knows like 30%. He knows about 30% of the text.
Right. Right. But it's still not going to say like, then I, the narrator, was locked out of Scrooge's house.
Right.
Although the narrator does speak in first person often in the book. But that doesn't happen. But anyways, the next thing is that Gonzo, when they can't get in, he goes back to what he does know and he starts narrating again. Scrooge made his way up the staircase and then, goes on for a while, carrying out a button for the darkness and all that.
Did we get to Scrooge slamming the door in Gonzo's face?
Yeah.
Well, we just said that we said it was the door was closed.
You have some thoughts about that.
Just briefly, because I know we've talked about it before, but when he slams the door in Gonzo's face, Gonzo's nose gets smushed in. I'm trying to demonstrate it visually, even though this is an audio podcast. We have seen this before, when his nose got twisted in the elevator in Great Muppet Caper. And then pretty much this exact same thing in Muppet Family Christmas when the turkey bonked him on the nose. So I started a thread on the Tough Pigs forum asking if anyone knew how this works. Because I think we were pretty certain that there's some kind of armature in Gonzo's nose so that if you twist it or turn it, it will hold that position. But then what I found out from our friend Tony is that there's this mechanism, some kind of mechanism that there's a video, actually. I'll put this in the show notes too. There's a video of Dave Goelz doing a Q&A with Gonzo at the Arizona Museum for Youth in Mesa, Arizona. I don't know exactly when this happened, but somebody
can actually scrunch up his nose.
Yeah, somebody in the audience asks about this weird mechanism that's hanging out at the back of Gonzo's shirt. And he demonstrates that when he squeezes this thing, Gonzo's nose just kind of curls inward. So it's really weird, but apparently he can just do it that easily anytime he wants.
Wait, but how is it? This brings up a whole new life.
It just does
a whole new life. No. It's my question is not how does it work? Because that sounds adorable. Totally makes sense. My question is, how did we not know that? How is it 2022?
I don't know.
Gonzo has had this thing hanging behind his back the whole time.
Well, maybe not every Gonzo puppet has it. That would be my guess. Maybe some Gonzo puppets have it, but not all.
I feel like there are still mysteries out there.
We're still learning stuff all the time. Yeah, I'm constantly amazed at puppets that I thought a certain mechanism must have been radio controlled, but it's actually controlled by the puppeteer's fingers, or vice versa. That's why there's still podcast. There's still new territory for us. Yeah, and new wiki pages being created too.
Yeah, for real.
Right. Also, on the topic of Scrooge slamming the door in Gonzo's face, Scrooge slams the door in Gonzo's face and it affects Gonzo's nose.
Yes, that's true.
That's another example of the reality of this story affecting Gonzo and Rizzo.
Right. But let's say if Gonzo had gone ow really loud, would Scrooge have heard him? I guess that's the...
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe not. Right. Yeah. Because
I think that's the thing. Yeah. Rizzo can kind of dance on that hot turkey, but they are not, they're not aware that he's there. They don't, they're someone's looking in the window or whatever. Yeah.
So the story can affect Gonzo and Rizzo, but they can't affect the story, I guess.
Except when they tell Sam the Eagle that it's not America.
Right.
It's Great Britain.
All right. There's no rules.
Yeah, and that's back
also,
in time even.
Yeah. But then I guess what we're coming up to is the big moment where Gonzo is in control of the camera angles. Because he gets bonked and he does the thing, and then we see Scrooge going up the stairs and darkness. What is it? Darkness. Darkness is cheap. Scrooge likes it, and so he's looking around. And this part is absolutely not Dickens text.
Well, it's a paraphrase. Here's the thing. So what Gonzo says is. Scrooge made his way up the staircase, carrying not a button for the darkness. Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. The incident
Not
at the
a
door
button.
made Scrooge wary. In the 1843 text,
Yes,
it's
not
a
a button
bottom,
is there.
but
Yeah.
carrying
I
not a
thought
button for the darkness. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
it's-
darkness is
but-
cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Is in the text
Right,
as well.
right. But then the next
Wait,
thing.
sorry,
is,
did you just say not a button is not in the text?
So it is, but sometimes not.
Oh,
In the original manuscript, which I just think is funny, it was carrying not a bottom for that.
Oh, not a bottom.
Oh.
A bottom, and then he
That's-
changed it to button in the published version. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's what
sillier.
I was looking at button. Yeah.
Huh.
But anyways, what Dickens says after that is, let me go back. What Gonzo says
Yeah.
after that is, the incident at the door made Scrooge wary. Before he shut himself up for the night, he searched his rooms. So that's Jerry Jewell. But
Yes.
what Dickens says right after that is, but before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Nobody, and then there's more. I mean, it's Dickens, he's wordy, but nobody
goes
under
on
the
there.
bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. So, it's all kind of there. It's just not the same words. It's not like Jerry Jewell spinning this stuff whole cloth.
Right. He's adapting.
The lighting the lamps though is not.
That's
So
not in
the
there,
thing
yeah,
of
right.
and actually Dickens does make a whole point about he makes this huge point about the fire and the candles because it's hugely important to Dickens for everyone to know exactly how many pennies he's spending on his own comfort. Because he talks about the fire is really low and he has to get really close to it in order to feel it because he won't even keep himself warm with his money.
Right. Yeah. He eats green.
But
we'll see in the next.
yes, but what Gonzo arranges for this is he arranges the camera angle so it's really low, and now we're looking up at Gonzo and Rizzo, and then behind them is the upstairs window. And he says to conduct a proper search, Scrooge was forced to light the lamps.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which is not, so
and
that's
in the
not
book-
Dickens. That was,
Right.
yeah,
And in the book, Scrooge presumably never turns on more than that one candle, like you say.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But he has to light the lamps so that then Gonzo says that and the light goes on.
Right. It makes a nice visual from outside the house. Is how I put it in my notes.
Yeah. And so that's this moment where he's showing that he really is omniscient, and Rizzo. It's a whole thing of Rizzo saying how does he do that?
Right,
does
that's
he
the
do that?
punchline
Right,
to Rizzo saying, "How do you know what Scrooge is doing? Because he's up there, we're down here," and Gonzo saying
Which
that
is-
storytellers are omniscient.
Right. Which is going to come back in the next movie. The how does she bloody do that?
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
repeated refrain.
Oh yes,
In the next movie. Yeah. So then you're right. All that happened. Another thing you talked about is we've talked about how great this movie looks.
Yeah.
And compared to the first three, and that shot of Scrooge walking up the stairs, Michael Caine's face lit only by a candle. I think that looks so great.
It's so great.
I
It's
think that
so
really is.
spooky. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the Scrooge walking up the staircase, can I also talk about one of the weirdest asides Dickens makes in this entire book?
Please.
Yes.
He goes out of his way to describe how wide Scrooge's staircase is. And-
yes, it does.
And this is how he does it. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six, meaning a coach drawn by 6 horses, driving a coach and 6 up a good old flight of stairs or through a bad young act of parliament. But I mean to say you might have got a hearse up that staircase and taken it broadwise with the splinter bar towards the wall and the door towards the balustrades and done it easy. There was plenty of width for that and room to spare, which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. So he does all that just to be like, Scrooge is freaked out, right? Like, that's really all that means. He saw Jacob Marley's face on the doorknob. Now he's seeing a hearse up the stairs. But he takes a whole paragraph to describe, here's how wide it is. Here's exactly how you could get a hearse up these stairs if you needed to.
That's kind of cool, though. Has there ever been an adaptation where Scrooge hallucinates a hearse driving up the stairs? Because I would like to see that.
Or just Dickens, Dickens in the staircase while he's coming up, measuring.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man, I'm gonna blow this wide open.
Right. I feel like it's in the Zemeckis movie, though. Maybe.
Oh,
the hearse.
Okay.
I think it might be. I've only seen that once.
Yeah, I really
it has
gotta
a
watch
lot
all
of
these
that
other
kind of
adaptations.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder if, in 1843, if there was just a lot of staircase envy. Like if that was a big, because it's making a big deal about his balustrades.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Maybe that was. I mean, this is a way to express. Yeah, he's very stingy with the candles and with the fire, but staircases.
He's got the widest staircase in town.
Dude is flush with staircase capacity.
You know what they say about a man with a wide staircase?
With a wide staircase. He
can drive a hearse up it.
Yeah.
Well, remember this used to be Jacob and Robert Marley's house, so there might be something to that as well. Maybe he always coveted their wide staircase, and now it belongs to him.
That's right. So then after Rizzo says, "How does he do that?" The last 46 seconds of this clip are all. It's just Michael Caine by himself. He walks around,
being up the laundry.
Right. He looks around for a while and then he attacks a monster. But like you just said, Danny, it's not a monster. It's his best dressing gown. He savagely beats his best dressing gown.
Beats the crap out of that thing.
I feel like this is the textbook definition of a wardrobe malfunction. Like he gets real mad. Now this is something that is actually faithful to the book. Because I saw this. It says we're both, you and I love that we're like dueling, like
you're both you can't wait.
It's really fun. I know we're really into it. Nobody under the bed.
Interpretations of how faithful it is or isn't to the book.
Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall.
Right.
So Dickens was suspicious. He did say that the dressing gown looks suspicious.
Right. I don't know. That's what's so great, though, is that the dressing gown is suspicious in the book, but the savage beatdown is all Jerry Jewell. Like that's what's so great about it. Like he takes inspiration, you know. That's what and that's to me that's one of the things that makes this such a good adaptation of the book is that Jerry Jewell is clearly having so much fun playing around with the book. You know, like he's not just dryly adapting it like some people have in the past. You know. Mm-hmm. He's into it.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
All right. I mean, I think there is sort of this, I think there is a question, which I think is part of like what Rizzo is asking, which is why are we making this movie specifically? Like, I honestly think that's the central question in the movie. Because the Muppets make movies, right? That's nothing new. But why are we making this movie instead of like, I don't know, a Muppet movie that has Muppets in it, where like this, it requires them to like tone down the Muppets and they have to like appeal to the authority. And they're saying like, no, this is really, this is very faithful to Charles Dickens' text. Like they go all into that, even if it is only like 30%. My interpretation of this entire movie is that since May 17th, 1990, the only thing that anybody has said about the Muppets or the family is what a creative genius Jim Henson was and how he touched the world and what he achieved. And then the very next thing they do is they turn to Brian and they say, so how are you going to carry on this great work?
Yeah.
That's the context of this movie. Everybody looks at Brian. Everyone's like, oh my God, Jim Henson was so amazing. And then we all turn and look at Brian. This is his first major project.
He's been named chairman and CEO of the company at the age of, was it 27, I think?
Yep.
27.
They have screwed up the Disney deal. Right. They messed that up completely. All of Henson's actual plans have fallen through. All the stuff that he wanted to be doing, like in 1991 and 1992, they're not doing the theme park stuff, which he was super into. Pig of the 90s is not happening. The environmental show is not happening.
You love Pig of the 90s.
I love Pig of the 90s, but did not happen because Henson died, and now here's Brian.
This was so he's not doing the sort of PR campaign where they were going to plant items in newspapers and go on talk shows and stuff to announce that Kermit and Piggy were not an item, and Piggy was going to
and there was going to be this whole thing of right before Muppets at Walt Disney World aired, like a week before that, there was an item in People magazine that said that Kermit and Piggy had split up, which is actually an idea that they used in 2015 when they were about they were starting up the new sitcom. Like they did exactly that. Of like they did a thing out in the world where they told everybody Kermit and Piggy are breaking up.
It definitely got a huge reaction.
It did, and so they were actually planning to do that. That was an idea from 1990. But then, like almost immediately after that, Henson died, and so that they couldn't do fun stuff like that. So none of the stuff that Henson had planned is actually happening. So this movie is Brian Henson like saying, "Okay, this is what I'm doing with the Muppets," and it's kind of he's making a movie that's actually kind of fighting the Muppets, which I think is amazing.
So I don't think I've talked about A Night at the Opera yet this season, have I?
Amazingly, no, I don't think you have. I don't think either of us has. But all of what you're saying, Danny, is this. It's like the same thing Irving Thalberg did with the Marx Brothers. Oh yeah,
yes, yeah.
You know, he toned them down. He wanted to make a more like conventional MGM romantic comedy,
fun for the whole family.
A Night at the Opera.
Nothing too weird.
Right,
and they are. It's
what is remarkable to me in both of these cases is that it worked really well exactly once, in my opinion. I think you do Muppet Christmas Carol, and it's like that, like all of the things you're saying, that like this is a movie that like it isn't fun, tones down the Muppets. In theory, that's all true, and obviously, I love A Christmas Carol, like as you can tell. But like it's to me, it's like the perfect blend of those two things. And A Night at the Opera is like the funniest possible version of what if Marx Brothers in a realistic setting. And then Muppet Treasure Island and A Day at the Races are both just like, hey, that worked once, and then they don't really try, and they're not that good.
Let's try doing this again. But I do think that like some of the magic that is in this movie is that friction, which I think is like it's perfectly kind of summed up with Rizzo and Gonzo, like outside the window. Where what is it? Rizzo says something in this, and Gonzo just looks at him. Oh, Rizzo says, "Oh yeah, hoity-toity,
Mr. Godlike Smarty Pants."
Mr. Godlike
Smarty Pants. And Gonzo does an amazing take of just looks at him and pauses, and then turns to the camera and just keeps going with his narration.
He just doesn't react. He's not going to be deterred.
That feels to me like, again, Rizzo like, being our representative up on the screen is basically saying to Gonzo, you are a Muppet. Why are we making this movie right now? And Gonzo just pauses and then looks at the audience and just keeps on going.
He just ignores it.
Despite the fact that this makes no sense, that this is not the project that we should be doing right now. This is not the way to make everybody feel like Jim Henson's legacy is in safe hands. He's just going to go ahead and I agree with you. It works very well, but that is the moment that's happening right now.
And it took a few years, but this is definitely now one of the most beloved, one of the most widely beloved Muppet movies.
It is now. I want to talk about this next time I'm on, but we're going to talk about like the train wreck of the Christmas Carol's non-success in 1992.
Right.
Well, it didn't actually go that well.
And we should say that, Danny, you will not be with us next week. You'll be back to talk about that later on in the season.
I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back at the most opportune moment for that.
You have specifically requested another minute later.
Right, but we are actually at the end. I mean, as I said, the last thing in this clip is that
it's just beating up that dressing gown.
Yeah, Scrooge says, "Oh no, it's my best dressing gown," and that's the very end of this clip. So, do either of you have anything else before we close? Danny, I feel like you may have said it, but anything else?
I want to take a moment just to think about that dressing gown. It was not doing anything to anybody. Even Scrooge said, like, it's his best one too.
Best dressing gown,
his best dressing gown. That should have been what haunted him later on.
That's who he has to beg forgiveness. That's the stops. He has to go to Bob Cratchit, Nephew Fred.
Oh God, yeah. And then
he has to take his dressing gown to the dry cleaner.
Think about the feast. Just imagine, because he didn't really do that much to Bob Cratchit except for not pay him very well and yell at him. He didn't actually physically beat the frog. Just think about this. Just think about the turkey he needs to go and bring to that dressing gowns family.
Yeah.
That's my last thought on this.
You're not wrong, Ryan. Anything else?
Yeah, just one thing is that Rizzo doesn't really use hoity-toity correctly. Hoity-toity is an adjective. It's not really an exclamation, which is how he uses it. According to Merriam-Webster, it means thoughtlessly silly or frivolous, or marked by an air of assumed importance, which is how it's usually used as kind of like a slangy synonym for like pretentious. Mm-hmm. So, but Rizzo just says hoity-toity, Mr. Godlike, smarty pants.
Right. So you think what he meant is like la-di-da.
La-di-da, exactly. Right? Yeah. But he could have said something like, well, look at this hoity-toity smarty pants here, or something like that. There's ways that he could have used it correctly, but he's a rat.
Write Rizzo a letter.
Maybe I will.
Rizzo, you know what? It's one of those things where Rizzo just looks back at that. That comes to him at odd moments through the years. It's like every once in a while he's just like, why did I say hoity-toity?
Yeah. No, I hope so.
Why did I say that?
Well, I bet he's never used it incorrectly again after this. So
because he got so many letters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you. And so that is it for today. We are done, listeners. For over the next 7 days while you wait for our next episode, you can check out toughpigs.com on the internet. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can become a patron of ours on Patreon, and we would appreciate it very much if you did. You can email us with any additional notes you might have about Dickens adaptation at movingrightalong@toughpigs.com. You can follow Ryan on Twitter at @MeRyanRowe and on Letterboxd at @MoviesAreNeat. You can follow me on Letterboxd at ZeppoMarxist. Danny, remind us again where our listeners can find you and/or your work on the line.
You can find my new project is called Superheroes Every Day. It is a comedy blog about the history of superhero movies.
It is so sick. It rules.
And it is extremely sick.
It's a comedy blog, but it's also extremely detailed and exhaustively researched.
Yes, this is an exhaustively researched comedy blog. It's getting more. It's getting more weird. So it started with Superman. It's going kind of chronologically through the history of superhero movies, starting with Superman in 1978, and then Superman 2. And right now, at the time that we are recording, I am pretty much about 2/3 of the way through Swamp Thing. And the blog has started to get weird, like I always dreamed that it would. And by the time this is out, possibly I'll be into Superman 3 at that point. So please come and check it out at superheroeseveryday.com and also on Twitter and Facebook at similar handles.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I've said this last 2 times I think you were on, but I recommend it highly. I'm a little behind because it's summer, but I'll catch up this fall.
Fantastic.
Thank you once again to Morgan Davy for designing our logo. And listeners, please give us that positive review you've been meaning to give us for the last 4.5 years. And tell all your friends to listen to Moving Right Along. We'll be back next week with another episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
My best dressing gown.